Alrighty, hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Dirt podcast. I'm Hunter SWCD project coordinator, Neil Schaefer project coordinator. We got another guest on scene today, and I don't know if we can quite call him a guest, but he's our new 780 technician, Riley Wilson. Second day on the job today, and he come walking in the door about 5 minutes ago, and we said, "All right, buddy, you're in the hot seat. Pop a squat." So we're gonna see what we come up today with. Just kind of back up and kind of explain what his position is and how it's structured and stuff. Is we've had a few of these beforehand, and I've gone through it before, and it's basically the long and short of it. It's a temporary position. It's a 780-hour position that the state of Iowa IDALS is able to provide, where the district can then utilize that person for basically various odds and ends of tasks, whether it's surveying, CRP, water monitoring. It really can all depend on what time of year they're here, what their capabilities are, and that sort of thing. And our real plan for Riley is surveying 101, and he's got a lot of experience already. And we'll let him explain about that. But unfortunately, we weren't able to. We were kind of not going to say he's our consolation prize. He's definitely a great consolation prize if we want to go that route. But initially, we had talked about having Dalton Nelson after he had left and bringing him back, and he's since taken a great position with NRCS as a wetland specialist at Webster City, and so we kind of had to get back down to the drawing board on who we could pick up and who would be a good fit. And Riley came to mind right away. And I know he wasn't quite in the area; he was down in Des Moines and stuff like that. But we were able to cast a net down there, grab him, and pull him on up here. And so second day on the job, and we've already been out. We did a little watershed tour yesterday over in Wenatchee County, and he's been to a couple different conferences already. Before he even started, so we know we got the commitment side of him, and that sort of thing. And so now we're going to be able to jump in the field. I think we're digging some holes today to put some signs up, and then probably getting our hands and feet dirty and getting some surveying and stuff. So we're going to give it over to Riley for a little bit. If you just want to kind of explain what you where you went to college, high school, what you did, your background, and then what you were doing on down in Des Moines before you came up here.
Yep. So I'm from Cresco originally, so obviously it was I wanted to come back to my hometown, and I went to college first at Upper Iowa, played football, and then I transferred to UNI and finished school there. After college, I went down to Des Moines. I worked for a civil engineering survey company, did surveys, mostly rural surveys, and a lot of different stuff. And always enjoyed the outdoors, hunting, fishing, and just we had a general interest in conservation and stuff like that. So when Neil reached out to me, it was something that I've always been interested in, and I figured it'd be something that might be worth a shot. So
Yeah, sometimes you don't always find the one that seems like the obvious choice, and you got to kind of dig down and think about it a little bit. And obviously, we came up with your name, and it was obviously the perfect choice. I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, whenever we get asked a lot of times on why our watershed projects are successful or why Howard County is so successful, a lot of times one of the common factors is we're from the area, we know the folks, they trust us, we trust them. And obviously Riley, being a Cresco native, knows a lot of the farmers already, probably worked with them with your dad. His dad owns a tree service in town here, so obviously he's out and about. Got that side of the conservation aspect as far as the timber work and stuff. And I don't know, have you done a lot with the timber stuff? Maybe we can kind of jump into the timber stand and that kind of thing. What kind of background or what you've maybe done with that part of it?
I've been around it a lot. Obviously, I don't know as much as my dad, but it's something that I have a background in, so I think would like to learn more and be.
I mean, we're doing pretty easy and entry level as far as TSI. I mean, we've used the CSP program a little bit, EQIP program a little bit, and a little bit with REAP as far as getting some trees planted and stuff. But as far as conservation side of it, we've really only done kind of the minimal as far as getting some invasives removed, the buckthorn, that sort of stuff. But yeah, maybe we're able to put Riley on the spot with the CSP and start to dive in with some extra timber plans.
We actually do have some nice tree programs, whether it's through the REAP program, the Resource Enhancement and Protection Program. That's a state program. With that's how we do our windbreaks, farmstead windbreaks. And we'll do hardwood tree plantings. We got to do at least 3 acres in a plot when we do those tree plantings. And then there's also, you can do some timber stand improvement through REAP. But the last few years, the Conservation Security Program, which a lot of people are familiar with it on working cropland, there's also a timber stand program part of it. So we've had, I don't know, probably a dozen, maybe 2 dozen people that have come through that. We work with the district foresters out of Charles City. They create a forestry plan, and then we kind of fit it to the programs. The other big program with trees is the CP22 riparian buffer program, where we plant trees along a stream, and that's usually in a marginal pasture area. A lot of times people have sold their cattle and looking for something to do with that old pasture. It usually floods out, so you don't want to be down there planting corn and soybeans, and so breaking it up isn't really an option. But this is a pretty nice option, because especially with the CP22, you can plant 120 or 180 feet out from each side of the tree, so you can consume quite a bit of ground that way.
Yeah, we haven't done a whole lot of them lately, just because we're big proponents of putting grass next to the stream and stuff like that. I mean, the trees definitely have their place. Personally, I like to see them up on the uplands with the white-tailed deer running through them, where I can put a tree stand in them, but that's just me being me. But Riley, put you on the spot here. What is your favorite conservation practice right now? Before you've ever really worked in a conservation office, what's your favorite conservation practice right now?
I guess I don't know a lot, but I think the stream bank stabilization is kind of interesting and cool. And yesterday we were on a project or a tour, and I thought Neil was explaining some interesting stuff. How the water was, they built a crossing in the stream, and they built it up so the water was flowing over it, and it was causing it to turn over and dig a big hole and kind of tear up their what they had for a stream area. So that was interesting, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more interesting stuff as we get through the week.
I think that's the same question we had at one of our conferences. We were down in Des Moines, and they're like, "What's your favorite conservation practice?" Or it might have been the one in Dubuque, but yeah, I think I forget what I said. I think I might have said stream bank also, just because it's such a improvement, especially for our streams. We've done a whole podcast on stream banks, so I won't get too much into it, but that was interesting. It's always kind of fun, and you go out to these sites. A farmer invites you out. On this deal, we were actually, one of our fellow project coordinators in Northeast Iowa took us out to a site, and it's kind of like a little investigation work, and you kind of looking around, and they were talking about the stream bank project that had failed, and just like Riley said, we got to looking and hear the farmers putting a nice crossing in every year, spending about $1,500 rocking this up about 3-4 feet across the stream. Well, anytime you put something in the flow of water, you've created a vortex below it. And honestly, I would put money on it that was probably the main reason they had a failure on that stream bank, and they had a tremendous hole. I mean, you could put a whole USDA building into it. It was ginormous.
What's really interesting is how much power some of these streams have, and how one little pebble or one little rock can alter that hydrology so much. I know they have them from very small scales, where you can make a little stream table on a little 4-foot table, and you can shape it however you want to, and you can take that one rock, set it in there, and see how that water then changes the flow and stuff. And you can get up to such a large scale. Iowa State has this, basically like a stream simulator, where it's I don't know, it's probably a 40-foot long run, and you can change the elevations, you can change the slope of it, you can change how much water. I mean, it is impressive. And this guy built it, engineered it, built it, and they basically use it to see how much sediment can be contributed, how long it takes before that saturated soil is then eroded away. So I mean, it is beyond belief. You have to go see it to believe it. But
well, you add another dimension to this place we looked at yesterday. First thing I looked at the trees around, and you could see the debris, the grass. I mean, this was probably at least 12 feet, 15 feet up in the air. So there's a huge flow. Which is the other crazy thing, we're in the karst area. This is a dry run. So this creek was probably at least 35, 40 foot wide. Oh, yeah. The banks were probably 10 to 12 feet high, very raw. But that water, when it's low water, we haven't had as much rainfall, it all goes down underground in that karst area. But when it does flow, it is a torrent. So yeah, they had a lot of stuff going on, but yeah, they had some work to do there.
Yeah, and you mentioned that driveway and stuff, on how that was what we initially came for was to look at the stream bank that had failed in previous years. Excuse me, and we're standing there trying to decide what caused it, what could we fix, this, that, whatever, and then you kind of turn around and you see this drive. It's like, well, there's probably 75% of the culprit. I mean, just what he was trying to do the right thing and stuff, it actually was probably creating the problem. And so, I mean, in a situation like that, you kind of hope that they can sink it into that profile, so you're not creating that dam effect or that ripple effect or whatever, and then hopefully can solve some issues. I mean, it's never going to solve the whole thing. It's not going to bring the bank back.
Yeah.
It's not going to slope the banks back. But at least maybe it isn't going to create that 10, 15-foot scour hole down below.
Yeah,
Like
you know, we were all like standing there looking at this ginormous hole, and what they teach you at stream classes, turn around and look upstream. Whatever 5 to 1,000 feet above is usually what's causing your issue below. So we didn't have to go very far to kind of find the problem on that. So that's kind of cool investigation work we do too when we go out on these sites.
So, I mean, back to Riley, I guess we're getting pretty excited about getting back out into the field. Ideally, we would have liked to have him here a little bit earlier, but that's just how things go. He was actually on a special project down in Des Moines, working with the airport and doing some surveying and stuff down there, trying to get a project finished up. But nonetheless, we're going to hit the ground running here. We got a lot of waterways ready to survey, and then we're going to try to jump into that batch and build project and try to find as many of those edge of field practices and start getting some surveys on those and stuff. And so having Riley with a lot of experience already in the surveying aspect is going to go a long ways. I mean, obviously it's a different equipment that we use and stuff, but if you've surveyed before and you've been able to use some equipment, it's going to take off like that. But
Yeah, between the waterways, excuse me, waterways, the stream banks, we got like a couple dozen stream banks that need surveys done. And then these new edge of field practices will definitely make use of Riley's experience, and I think he's going to be an excellent addition to our office and to what we can accomplish and spread that workload around, because we've got a tremendous workload. You know, it's wonderful to create this atmosphere in the county amongst farmers for the conservation, but it puts a little extra work on our plates, but we're up for it. And like Hunter said, we're always looking for good people that got the abilities and the willingness and the desire to be out there and do this stuff. So we just actually bought some new winter coats, and the weather isn't gonna be a big deal. I've always said there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad wardrobe choices. So get the long johns on and some warm coats and gloves, and we'll be out there probably right through January, I expect. So as long as the snow doesn't get too deep. I don't like walking through snow.
yeah, I do have pretty short legs. I don't think I'm going to be able to trek through. I might have to get the snowmobile out or something. And you guys have to pull me out.
I was gonna say we'll put Hunter in a little sled and Riley can pull him around out
There you
the
go. You
field.
can I'll pull the survey rod. You might have to give that a try.
You might have to.
Shove the rod right through the snow.
He didn't realize what we go through in the winter. We used to have Dalton to pull the sled. Now we got Riley's.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get a unit. We can't use manpower anymore. We're gonna have to either switch over to the horse and carriage, or we're gonna have to get an actual snowmobile or something, because
I
don't know if Riley's got the horsepower. We'll have to find out.
It is our equipment request time of year for the
is true.
USDA, so we might get a sled with some tracks on it.
Maybe
or
we can
something.
trade off one of those side-by-sides for a snowmobile, and then tell them we want the side-by-side back in the spring. They'll never know it was gone. Interesting. Riley, what are you looking to learn? What's your number one thing you want to learn, or maybe a couple things you're looking to learn with this experience?
Well, there's a lot to learn. I think I'd like to learn more like the science stuff behind it. I went to school for business and sports studies, so I don't know a ton about the soil fertility or different wild grasses and stuff like that, but I've already learned quite a bit at the conferences. Yeah, I'd like to actually become knowledgeable in that and actually be able to share my knowledge with farmers or whoever. So
Yeah, I know, like, when we kind of first sat down and talked to Riley about if this is a possibility and would he be interested in stuff, the number one concern he had was the education part, that he didn't go to school for it. And I said right off the bat, being one who actually went to school for it, said, yes, the college knowledge is nice, you learned a lot, but the on-the-job training is far beyond what you could ever learn at a 4-year or 2-year school.
I've told that to people too. I mean, you can't really go to they don't teach CRP and EQIP and a lot of the programs that we do at a school anyway. And Hunter knew that. He was working here part-time the entire college career, going through the conservation end of it. I think what was nice for Hunter was he could see the application of what we're doing in the field and compare that to what he was learning. So there was a few things that probably were a little bit off the mark, but I think it enhanced the stuff that you saw us using in the office that you needed to really brush up on.
Absolutely, and definitely, I mean, not to discredit school at all or education. I mean, definitely learned a ton of great things, but the Iowa Water Conference, the Watershed Academies that he's already been to, go through a lot of that stuff that you go through at school. It maybe is not down to the nitty gritty of it, where you're breaking it down in specific lessons and stuff like that, but I mean, you're getting through that general overview to get the basic knowledge that you're ever going to need. And honestly, when Riley mentioned he wants to be able to give that knowledge back to the farmers, I've learned just as much from the farmers as the farmers have learned from me. And
Definitely.
That's one thing, is always being able to continually learning and learn from your peers and whoever's around you. And you never know it all unless you're Neil. He knows it all.
No, I don't know it all. But I have done a lot on job. I mean, in 20 years, you do go to a lot of classes. You pick up a lot from your coworkers and just the programs, implementing programs. But as far as like the science of things, the hydrology thing, I mean, I would have walked out there and had I not gone to this stream program. I've been to that 5 times as a 4-day course out in Western Iowa to learn about the hydrology of water and things like that. I would have never thought that, putting a crossing in was going to have any implications down the way.
Water does always flow downhill.
It always does. That's a sound. I did know that. That was a reason. But as far as
people don't.
As like Riley's saying about some of the science and learning stuff, I mean, there's the hydrology thing, the native prairie plants. I mean, we're going to have opportunities to go to prairie conferences, plant ID courses down at actually at UNI, the vegetated roadside management business down there has some really good trainings. But as far as soil health, we
can't forget about Schaefer University.
Well, I know I do a little.
We have our locally sourced Schaefer University Plant ID course. It's about a 6-week course.
Yeah. Native Plant 101.
Costs nothing. It's free to the public. What do you say, about a half-hour session each day?
So
for 6 weeks.
What we do is next to our building, when we built out here, it's like in 03, I think it'll be 10 years or 20 years now that we've been out here. But when we initially came out here, I'll disregard that. When we first moved out here from downtown, the property had a lot of lawn and a big chunk of lawn on the one side of the south side of the building. So we went to talk to the landlords down in Rosie Gooder and asked them if it would be all right if we put in a prairie plot next to the building. And I don't know, I'd say it's probably half an acre. And the back end of it is the tall grass prairie, and the front part is the short grass and a lot of forbs. It was before pollinator was cool. We actually had one. So especially when we have interns and stuff, I start early in the spring as the plants flower, and then as grasses head out and stuff. But it seems like every week there's 2 or 3 new plants that are flowering or heading out, and so that by the end of August, when they head back to school, we've learned probably 50 to 60 different plants. So that's my class that I teach, and it's fun. I mean, it's easy, and it's also, it's not just intern stuff. We'll bring landowners that are interested in some CRP. We take them right out. We got a test plot right next to the building, so they have an idea of what it looks like, and it's gorgeous. Very minimal care.
What's really important about that is when we're doing these status reviews like we have right here, when you start getting to some of those general bids, there's a minimum number of grass species or forest species they have to be eligible. Well, if you can't identify what's out there, you're not doing the right job. You're not doing your job. So.
You need to learn it so that now we're going out in the fall, because it's a lot easier to get out to a lot of this CRP when the crops are off. But obviously things are brown now. But you're still going to have seed heads. You're going to have the seed for both grasses and flowers. So you're going to be able to make an inventory of how many forbs you have and how many grasses you have. But back to the soil health of things, that's a science on its own. And I know Hunter and I have been to countless soil health trainings, but we have an excellent Soil health training is called the Big Soil Health Show or program. It's going to be in Cedar Falls in the first week of December. So all three of us are going to that. It's a 2-day conference. So we're going to brush up on everything we need to know, get Riley introduced to the soil health end of things, which has really been a game changer for us and our farmers here in the county, especially with the increased use of cover crops and reduced tillage. That plays a huge role in soil health, and so that we can learn more, so that we can share that knowledge with the farmers too. So, like I said, as a continuing education, NRCS has a wonderful system. It's called Ag Learn. Courses we can take online, right from our desk in the office. So Hunter and I have taken multiple courses of that. So once Riley's all up and running with his new computer and gets all fancy on us, we'll start introducing him to some of those. It's you take them on your own, at your own pace type thing. So yeah, I have no qualms of
Be
it.
able to make some maps for you even.
That'll be good. I appreciate that.
He might not charge as much as I do either.
Yeah, it's like he makes fancy maps. That's really nice. I like the maps, but someone's got to do the other end of stuff too. We can't all be as talented as you, Hunter.
I'm just saying, I'm not that talented.
He does
I
make
found a
nice
niche.
maps, though.
That's how you get rich. You find a niche that no one else has quite ventured
Well.
into, and you make a lot of money.
You need a small box to put the money I'm going to put in for the maps, but
All right, let's put Riley through the ringer. Let's see how smart he really is. Let's see how educated Riley is.
right off
We're gonna
the
go
bat.
back and forth. We're gonna hit him with some questions and see how close or correct he can get. I got the first one.
Okay.
What is a conservation practice that increases infiltration rates of rainwater?
That increases in would be planting native grasses.
Ding ding ding!
That's
I gave him an
that's-
easy one.
And he picked the best one of all
He
of them.
did. I was thinking cover crops, native grasses,
Reduced tillage,
reduced
and he
tillage.
pulls out the best one.
He hit it right on the.
Yeah.
Yep. Hired. He can stay. He's not fired.
Well, I didn't get to ask him a question.
No. You keep going.
Oh,
We're gonna
okay.
go back and
Back
forth.
and forth, okay. Name at least 4 different animals, wildlife animals that our habitat that we do here helps promote in the county.
Pheasant. Deer. White-tailed deer.
What else do we eat? Hunter eats about anything that has a pulse.
Turkey. Or I'm trying to think of an interesting one, but
They like water.
trout.
Perfect. Pretty easy. I could name a couple more.
I was when you said something interesting. I was thinking an albino shrew. I seen one this
Oh
weekend.
my, how do they taste?
There was no way I was gonna get a chance at capturing that little bugger. I mean, you think squirrels are quick?
Yeah.
This thing was even quicker
How do you know he wasn't just old?
because I asked
It was
him.
albino.
It was albino, completely
That
white.
is so cool.
So I seen the white. It was still dark when I was sitting in the tree stand, and he was bouncing around. I was like, "Oh, is that a tail of a rabbit or something?" And as it got lighter out, I could see it. It's a little shrew or chipmunk or whatever you want to call it, I guess. And he's about that big and just completely white.
We're gonna work on our mammal identification because there's a lot of difference between a shrew and a chipmunk, but that's okay.
I called it a shrew. It sounds cooler.
Yeah.
Same difference.
Huh.
Name 5 species of trees. Good trees. Good trees.
Black walnut tree, white oak trees, maple trees, ash tree's not a good tree anymore. Elm trees are good for morels. What did I say? Hickory.
Bing,
Perfect.
ding, ding, ding,
Yeah.
ding.
Boy, I think your dad would have called in that you missed that one. Okay. Well, let's just test your knowledge a little bit. Do you know of name 3 different wildflowers or native flowers or native grasses? Just 3.
Cereal rye, is that one?
We'll say Canada wild rye. That's close enough.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. When you're out there hunting pheasants, what else do you see out there?
Switchgrass.
Yep. 2.
Uh,
One more. See any wildflowers out there?
Wildflowers.
See, this is how we're gonna do this in a year from now, and he will be rattling off so many that I'll have to go. I'll have to take my shoes off to count them all.
I don't know my plants.
Oh yeah, no, that's awesome because that's actually one of our big things that we're doing right now is our like Hunter said, our status reviews for our re-enrollments this coming year. So we got to go out and inventory some of that stuff. So he will be up to speed on, I would say at least he'll know at least 4 grasses and 5 or 6 flowering plants within the week, easily.
Without
Yep.
a doubt.
So
I mean, simple things. Milkweed. There's how many different? There's 3 different kinds of milkweed.
yeah, yep.
Coneflowers, couple different coneflowers, big blue, little blue, and I mean,
New England asters.
trust me, you know these. A lot of guys know
Oh.
these. It's just you don't really hear the name, or you don't really come to you until you start.
Well, and you know,
thinking about
for
them.
so long in our farming community, especially, we were, weed. If it's not corn or soybean, it's a weed, and that's how I always find it comical when we start out with our new seedings, because what they've always told us: the first year it sleeps, the second year it creeps, and the third year it leaps. So that first year, especially, you go out there and farmers like, oh my gosh, you gotta come out here. All I got is all these weeds. And we get out there, and Hunter and I were bent down there looking around, and it's like we're just rattling off all these names. What do you find? What do you find? I said, you got an excellent stand here. Everything that I see here is what we put there. And so it's just wrapping your head around that. And we went through the list of different things, and we have the 5th most CRP contracts in the state. So we don't, and I think 16th in the number of acres. And so there's a lot of people that got small patches, they got a little piece of pollinator and different things. So Hunter, when he went to Upper Iowa, one of his courses, he put together a very nice ID guide where he went out into the woods and in the prairie and took actual pictures. I know it is because his thumb's in the picture of most of them. And
you gotta have that scale in there.
yeah, you gotta have the scale in there. Yeah. And anyway, I'm gonna go there. So we'll have that out on the desk at the counter, and we hand that out, and they're like, well, where'd this come from? Honestly, it's and what's nice of it, it's from Northeast Iowa. A lot of times you get these really thick ID books, and it looks like something you got to sign up for a year-long college course to take to understand. But it's just kind of nice because it's got a lot of local stuff. He went out at time of blooming on most of them, which is kind of how we do the whole course here at the plot next to the building too.
What I like about actually with that course, it was good and bad. If Dr. Figdor, if you ever listen to this, you'll have to tune in. But we took a class. It was actually in the springtime, and so there wasn't a lot of native grasses blooming at that time, being it was in the spring and it was still cooler. But we went and seen a lot of woodland plants, lot of woodland flowering plants. And so at the time, obviously, I had very little experience in that sort of thing, so it was a good learning curve and whatnot. But now coming back when we're talking about like this rusty patch bumblebee and stuff, those woodland flowering plants are so important, and I wish I would have understood it more then.
Yeah, I mean, we did take a training here, and we actually were down at Upper Iowa when we did this. And the rusty patch bumblebee and a lot of bumblebee species, they'll use the prairie flowers for gathering nectar and stuff, but they go back into the woods a lot of times to hibernate. And when they come out of hibernation, it's those woodland plants that are blooming, because you go out in early April, and before the prairie flowers have taken off, because those are a warmer season plant, you got all these wildflowers in the woodlands, which I do need to brush up more on those, because Hunter and I did a ID class with the local 5th graders out at the nature center, and we took them on a little walk into the woods, and I was like, whoa, I really should have looked at that guide that Hunter had put together, because I was struggling a little bit. So, but we found enough that made us look smart anyway. and the kids liked it. So
That's half the part. Gotta be
that's
confident,
that.
and look the part.
You look
they'll
confident,
believe you.
and I think we gave the right names to everything. But if we weren't right, at least we were confident in it. So.
We give it our best effort.
Yeah.
But
So Riley, as far as like the onboarding process, I mean, it's not like going down to a fast food restaurant to get a job. There's a little bit involved. How has that process been for you?
Kind of slow. It's not too bad. It's just once you get through the initial, I guess I didn't really have an interview, but once you get through that, then they do the whole background check, which is kind of takes some time. But like you guys know, I had to go down to Ames and go into felt like I was going through the Secret Service, getting in there and stuff, and get your fingerprints and all that taken, and feels really official. But yeah, it wasn't too bad, just as long as you have a little time to wait. But it worked out good for me since I was still working in Des Moines, and I was still had a place down there and stuff, so it didn't work out too bad for me at all.
Yeah, it's well, with security clearances, and then getting your new computer, the IT will be working with you to do all that, and then eventually you get to go pick that photo ID badge up. So that's one of the things USCA, just like any other government office, we're pretty big on security, and mostly what that pertains to is keeping people's personal information safe. We're working with people's social security numbers, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of protocol that we have here to keep people's identity safe and things like that. So glad it wasn't too horrible, but it is a process, and I believe we began that process in early October. So, and here it took about a month, I guess.
Yeah.
Still don't have a computer yet or that badge, but I'm sure it's coming soon. So
don't need a badge to be out in the field.
that's true. Bobby Kennan was here, our IDALS HR guy for Northeast Iowa, and I said, "Oh, that's fine. He doesn't need a computer for a couple months. We're gonna keep him outside surveying." So, but no, it'll be coming soon, and so get to that so that when we get the crummy days, which I can't believe it snowed out today. I mean, I woke up and went outside, but that will not deter us from our mission. So we got a lot of work to do yet.
Absolutely. Well, we better. We're gonna shut her down. We got 4 pretty good sized holes. We better start digging before that ground gets frozen. So.
Well, we'll probably take a picture of it, and then our Mr. Editor here can put it in there. But working with RC&D in Postville, they came up with a really nice Turkey River watershed signs, and we got 2 of them. So we're going to be placing both of them on Highway 63 as you're entering from the north and as you're entering from the south. So it's one more thing to make people aware of the watershed, especially Hunter's watershed. Eventually, I think we'll probably get one to put out on Highway 9 coming from the west, so that you can see where the headwaters actually begin. We're going to be pretty close with those signs on the north one too, and that's in addition to the stream bridge crossing signs that we've done. Stay tuned. Next summer, you're going to see a lot more of those popping up, and it's all part of our education awareness so that people know their watersheds. So yeah, as looking at the forecast, it's hard enough digging holes without digging through frozen ground. So we've been kind of waiting for mussels here to show up to help wrestle those into the grounds once we get them put up. So they're going to be an excellent addition to our conservation efforts here, and look forward to that. We got some cover crop signs to pound in too, but steel posts go through a little bit of frozen ground. That won't be a big issue.
Especially when you get guns like this guy.
Yeah, this is at least they got the right attitude, I guess. So.
Alrighty, well, hey, thanks for tuning in, and welcome Riley to the Soil and Water District here in Howard County. We're glad to have you. So we'll be back next week with another episode of Beyond the Dirt.